Parramatta on Saturday. The Storm are coming for you. The common denominator in so much of their success is the man on screen right there and their coach, Craig Bellamy. Belly, great to see you on 100% Footy. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, James.
We've got a lot to discuss with you tonight, but first and foremost, we've just seen there, and I know you were kicking back and watching it with a little smile on your face, and with good reason. Have you given yourself a moment over the past few days just to sort of appreciate what you and the team have achieved?
Yeah, we had a longer turnaround this week after our game last week against the Titans. So we let our hair down a little bit on Friday, and the boys got together. And again, it was probably more just to let our hair down a little bit. Generally, we've had a couple of short turnarounds. So, but obviously, the matching that Roosters. So the Eastern Suburbs record is 75. As I said to the boys, that they obviously wouldn't remember, that team. Their grandfathers probably can, but I can, and I just know what a wonderful team they were, and to match that record, it was pretty special, and I'm really proud of the boys for what they've done.
Craig, a lot of people thought that with Cameron Smith retiring that the Storm would come back to the pack. You'd struggle. Clearly, you probably should have told him to retire a lot earlier. But it begs the question, where does this team sit in the teams that you've coached? Is this group of players the best Storm team that you've had the chance to coach?
Yeah, it's sort of hard to, compare teams, especially from different eras. I think, from year to year, you can probably compare teams, but obviously our 17 team and our 07 team, they were probably won more games than our other teams. But as I say, it's really hard to compare, and I don't like to compare. But certainly this group is a really enjoyable group to coach. I knew we'd miss Cameron, and we are missing Cameron in some ways. But the group's got a great care about our performances. They've got a great care about their teammates. They've got a great care about our club, and what we need to do, to be successful each week. But also to, it's not only about what happens on the field. It's also we're representing Melbourne in the NRL, and we know our off-field behaviour is important as well. So as I said, this group is a really good group to coach. They're a fun group to be around, but when it's time to work, they get down to it. And as I said, I'm really proud of what they've done.
Craig, I read an article a couple of weeks ago by Cameron Smith, and he said, in years gone by, you really focused on winning the minor premiership, but that sort of went out the window last year. The total focus was on winning the actual premiership, and you rested players when you needed to rest them. Do you feel you need to rest any players in these last two rounds leading into the semi-finals?
Yeah, we rested a couple last week, Gal, and, this week we'll rest a couple more, but we're probably looking at the last round. That's what we did last year. We didn't sort of, do it progressively last year. It was sort of, in the last round, but this year we've sort of rested them progressively. And, as I've said before with Cameron, that's a fair point that he says, and we probably did sort of look, just not past next week, I suppose. That was our what's name, but those guys, and Cameron probably the main culprit. It was really hard to get those guys to have a week off, and I used to love them for that because that they wore it as a badge, to be able to back up from Origin, to be able to back up each and every week, to play 80 minutes each week. And but last year we convinced them to do that. And like I say, it worked out well last year. How much it led towards our success in the grand final, I don't know. But certainly this year we've been a lot more, I suppose, a lot more planned in who we've rested and when we've rested them.
Craig, I realise and understand you're not wanting to compare your current side with past eras, but given all the point-scoring records they've broken this year, both individuals and as a club, and they're going to set between now and the end of the year, could you give me an appraisal on the rest of the competition in how you think the hardness of this competition compares with previous years? The depth of talent, the depth of competitive teams, and just your focus on where the game is at the moment in that respect.
I think it's been the biggest, I suppose, change in the game this year that I've seen, Gus, in that, the change in the rules and the change in the interpretations of the rules. I think it's really helped some teams, and it's made it, a lot harder for other teams, So, the changes come pretty quickly, and, to adapt to them. It's one thing to adapt, but it's also having the players to adapt. And I think, we're probably been, a little bit fortunate there, as has other teams. They've adapted quickly because, they've had the players to be able to adapt quickly, But certainly, the pace of the game, I suppose, because of the six again and just playing on, I think that that's obviously made a big difference, to the teams. But as I said, I think, some of the teams that have benefited from the changes, it's been, because I don't think we really had time in that pre-season to look at it closely and think, what do we need to do to be better? It was just, part of teams' makeup anyway. And I think, obviously the smarter players, the quicker players that can take advantage of smart ball players is really helped. And I think, that's been one of the factors, in our good form.
Craig, a lot of talk about Brandon Smith at the moment. I'm sure the guy next to him has got a checkbook ready to go. A lot of clubs would have a checkbook ready to go. How do you plan on using him into the future? And is there a place for both Brandon Smith, Harry Grant, long-term at the Melbourne Storm?
Well, there has been this year, and Michael, I tell you, we're going to do it, all we can to keep both of them. Obviously, this year Brandon has done, such a great job, starting the games, and part of that has been, I suppose, tactical at stages, but also, Harry's had a few injury problems. So, that's been, part of it too. That hasn't been a tactical thing there. But, I think it's certainly what Brandon's done in the first 20 or 30 minutes is when, Harry has been on the bench, has taken, probably the edge off the other side a little bit. That's made it, a bit more room for Harry to move and, work his magic. So, I suppose, again, both of those guys, are really, really important parts of our team without a doubt, and, they both obviously playing in that number 9 position. But, Brandon does such a great job as well, when he goes into the ruck, he's as good as any ruck player in the competition, especially, if he happens to come off the bench, and he just adds so much energy, whatever position, whatever his role is. And, it's worked really well for us this year. And I just hope, both of them can stay, fit leading into the finals. And if that happens, it's going to be a huge advantage for us.
I'd like to ask you, obviously, we speak about how long you have been at the Melbourne Storm. Just how much has the role as a head coach in the NRL and your role in particular evolved over your time at the club?
Well, I might be a little bit different to, to some people in that, I think it's got easier, to be quite honest. Like when I started as head coach in 2003, I had one assistant coach, we had one strength conditioning coach, one physio, and a guy that come in and strap part-time, for training and for games. So, but now, like those, 5 positions, I think we probably have 11 or 12 people, in, covering those positions now, as far as more coaches, more guys on the, the performance area, and more guys in the medical area. So for me, it's probably the workload has been less, the more we've gone on, because we've got more people on your, in the coaching areas, the performance areas and the medical areas. So I think, that there's a lot more probably scrutiny comes, to the coaches these days, though. I suppose, that's the negative about it, in that there's a lot more shows like your guy shows around that have got opinions and express those opinions, and sometimes they express them very strongly. So again, that's just the way the game's gone. It's the way world sport has gone, professional sport throughout the world. So that's just the way it is. But as far as I'm concerned, I think it's, for me, as I said, in those early days, it was like you hardly got any sleep, to cover all the areas that you want to cover. Whereas now, you've got people doing that. And I know the other thing I'm a lot better at these days is delegating, stuff as well to, sort of took me a little while to realise that, you've employed people, to help to do a job. Well, just let them do it. Whereas before I was probably, used to micromanage a little bit, but certainly now, if we're employing someone, well, we must think he can do the job, or we wouldn't have employed him and just let him get on with it.
Craig, how do you and the Melbourne Storm approach recruitment and retention? You're renowned for bringing guys who are on the scrap heap to become not superstars, but doing their job really well. Is it about the person or about the playing ability?
The first thing, Gal, is certainly about the person. I think one of my strengths, as I suppose a footy person, is watching a player play and picking up from how he plays and what he does off the ball too, I suppose, and what he does when his team score a try, what he does when the other team scores a try, and whatever. I reckon I can pick a guy that is a good person, like out of what he does in those instances, So that's the first thing that we look for. And if we don't know the guy too well, or he hasn't played too much NRL, or he's a kid coming from another club, we certainly do our homework with his might be his ex-coaches or his ex-school teachers or whatever. So, in our game, as all you guys know, everyone knows someone at another club. So we just make sure we do our homework first on them as a person, and then we'll look at them as a footy player. Having said that, obviously the first thing that our recruiters see is, obviously talent or, something that, spikes about his footy ability, but then we look at them as a person, and will they fit into what our organisation's about.
All right, Craig. Wayne Bennett said last week that the difference in the competition had little to do with player talent, but more to do with the lack of good coaching. You've watched a lot of coaches lose their jobs over the time that you've been a head coach. Do you feel for those coaches, or do you think that there is a difference in the way teams are coached?
I think there's certainly a difference, Gus. But the one thing I wouldn't say is that who's wrong and who's right. I think coaching. A lot to do with coaching is a lot of, I suppose, common sense. But what's common sense to you? What your values and what your beliefs are, and as we grow up, our values and beliefs are instilled in us by our parents, our grandparents, our mates, our school teachers, our junior coaches. So when you basically come into the NRL as a player, basically your values are set, and then when you go into coaching, they're obviously really set. So I think it's hard to say he's a successful coach or he's not a successful coach going on the results. Obviously, that's how people manage success, or they talk about success or judge success. But I think it's, there's no use, me looking at another coach, and you can certainly pick some things up off other coaches. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what's right for you, what's right in your belly, and make those decisions on what you think's right as far as the team goes. And, I think, as I said, as a coach, I try to really do what I think is right, the way I've been brought up, and this is right, the decisions that who I pick this week or who I leave out this week or whatever it is. But the last thought is this the best thing for the team? Not what's best for me, or not what best is for our captain or our whatever. What is best for the team?